I want to thank you all for being here. I'm John Kaplan, along with co-host and co-organizer Ken Martin. We're really pleased to have you here for, I guess you could call it Gelatt Fest 2016. The younger kids might call it Rodapalooza. The ones that follow football could call it RG1, instead of RG3. So we're glad you're here. It's our pleasure to be here, and especially, as you can tell, a great group here to honor a very special person, Rod Gelatt, as he approaches a milestone 90th birthday.
How can I sum up in just a few brief, and as Rod might say, pithy comments, a life well lived and a career well served? Now, maybe Rod won't agree with that assessment. For more than 4 decades, he counseled, tutored, mentored, guided hundreds and hundreds of students who walked into his newsroom. I venture to suggest virtually all of them wondered whether broadcast journalism was right for them. And probably when they graduated, most of them on time, more than a few probably still wondered if they could survive a career in the news business. But I guarantee you this, every one of them learned how to write a little bit better and how to view the world with a little more critical eye and a much more informed eye, thanks to Rod and his instruction. We stand here today because of Rod, who, yes, is remembered, and remembered very fondly by so many of his students. So yeah, Rod, to quote a certain wingless angel, you really had a wonderful life. And we thank you, Rod, for making my life better, for letting me be a friend, and for making me and all of us better journalists.
Rod Gelatt is journalism for Mid-Missouri. For decades, he came into our home via television or radio to tell us our news, all the while that he was working as one of the top professors at the world's top journalism school. So we have, in kind of broad strokes, a little reflection on Rod's life in journalism. One of the reasons that we have come together today, of course, is not only to honor Rod on the cusp of his 90th birthday, but Kent and I wanted to come up with a way to pay tribute to someone that has touched so many people. So thanks to dozens and dozens and dozens of former students, faculty, friends, family who have been very generous. I'm really excited to announce that we have established the Rod Gelatt KBIA Faculty Enhancement Fund in Rod's honor, and as Kent wants to tell us, it will be in perpetuity.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that in mind, and of course this means one of the top radio stations, one of the top national public radio stations in the country will receive financial assistance to meet faculty and resource needs for decades and decades to come. Again, all in Rod Gelatt's name. And
great.
Now,
and then Rod, so that you bring home something more than memories of a Hy-Vee sandwich and maybe a piece of cake today from this little gathering, we have several surprises for you. The first of which I think will look nice in your office or on your mantle, is this trophy inscribed Rod Gelatt KBIA Faculty Enhancement Fund, established by your students, family, and friends, September 2016.
We are very proud of you. We are proud to know you. And we are proud of all those various relationships we've had with you over the years. So the school decided, the department decided, that one of the ways we could recognize this kindly curmudgeon is with this, which will be on display now at KBIA. Yes. So here he is in his two best newsrooms, KOMU and KBIA, being the kindly curmudgeon that has been teacher and friend to so many of us for so long. We're proud to know you, sir. And it's been a great, long relationship for all of us in this room. I wish you'd buy lunch sometimes. I always end up with a check, it seems. But, you know, it's a great relationship. Thank you, Rod. This will hang inside the KBIA newsroom.
So read, see what's under there.
I'm Mark, I'm his oldest son. I have a couple stories. Probably the only kid in my dorm room whose letters from home were typed, double-spaced, on yellow paper. That at the bottom of the page it would say, "Love, Dad," but then he would put -30 dash on it, just in case I didn't know that they were all over. And for this time, I just have to tell one other story. You've heard about Missouri Forum.
Award-winning.
Award-winning, yes. Award-winning Missouri Forum. As some of you know, Dad has a personalized license plate that says J-Prof. He's had it for about 30 years. That wasn't his first choice for personalized plates. Tom knows the story. So one day, he was, I think we were in college then, we were home for there. We're sitting at the dinner table, and Dad comes, and Missouri had just started the personalized plates program, and said, your mom and I are going to get personalized license plate. And Mom had chosen hers. It's, I think, AMG OTR. She's an occupational therapist. He goes, and I'm going to do mine. I'm going to promote Missouri Forum. So my license plate's going to say MOFO. And that's what he called it. Yeah, so I just remember Tom and I are looking at each other, and after the shock wear off, we're sort of barely holding it together. And I've got running through my mind and said, this is probably not going to make it through the review process at the DMV. But just say it gets to the production phase, and some poor inmate is at the state pen is looking at this newly minted plate and thinking, what badass dude is going to be driving around town as the mofo of Central Missouri? So, needless to say, we finally decided we needed to let him in and convince him to put something else on the plate.
I'm Tom. I'm the second son, by the way. As Mark said, I think he would have preferred we went into journalism. We went pretty far from it. But I did, when I was in college in Montana, to earn a few bucks, I did agree to read the news at the local campus radio station. And so I came home at Christmas break, and I told my dad that I was making a few bucks reading the news. Really? Tell me about it. And I said, well, I go into the little station, and they had the teletype machine there or whatever, and I said, and I take it off, and I sit down, and I read it. And he looks at me, and he looks over my mom, and he says, my son is a ripping reader. So anyway, I'll leave it there. There's more than those, I'm not sure, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to those who put this day together, to John and Liz, and to Kent and Kent, to Martha, who've worked so hard to bring this group together to honor Rod. It's really a heartwarming event, and I thank you so much. To me, the greatest thanks that can be given to a teacher is to know that he or she has made a difference in the life of his students in some way, has left a lasting imprint. And I think this gathering shows, and the wonderful videos show that Rod has done that. And having lived with him for so many years, I know how hard he worked to do his job, and how important it was, and how important his students have been to him and continue to be.
Thanks to everybody for coming on this memorable occasion. I've never had a 90th birthday before, so I had nothing for comparison purposes. Something from the typewriter of Charles Osgood, my all-time hero of news by poetry. He wrote this for those of us in the news who always had to fight the front office about budgets. I quote, "We who are in radio and television too, though justly proud of who we are and what we do, know the world is swiftly changing in the drama that we tell, and while we want to feel we have cause for standing tall, this great broadcast business is a business after all. We all have certain pressures and we all have to report to a boss, a general manager, or someone of that sort, who tries to see that we who have their confidence and trust don't spend a nickel more than we absolutely must. One day you'll slip this mortal coil, and let's hope that on that date, when you leave it all behind and you stand before the gate, that it can't be said of you where the bright angel will have flown you, that the world was just a bit less well-informed for having known you." Thank you to Charles Osgood. They told me I had about 3 minutes to talk, but when I'm constrained, I tend to balk. Of course, without a limit, I sort of ramble and cause you toward the door to scramble. Forgive me, incidentally, for having used a script. It's much less dangerous that way. I am less likely to slip. Unlike a certain candidate for president this year, I find that if I write it down, I have much less to fear. My intent was to do just a little speeching, so forgive me for my endless preaching. But after about 40 years of teaching, I am guilty at times of overreaching. It used to be we had 50 minutes per classroom session in which to try to get across a lesson, having to do perhaps with writing tightly or about events that were unsightly. We strained at times to be unpassive while struggling instead for verbs most active. The leads we taught should be compelling, lest the viewers find them somewhat repelling. Frame the subject, use a backlight, and remember this about a soundbite. Look for quotes that tell the story, that sum it up in all its glory. Seek out sources who know the facts and will not be the least bit lax in telling you all you want to ask, because that is, after all, your task. We taught you how to write a script and later how to read it, and then the teleprompter, and boy, some of you sure need it. Another rule we always made clear is to remember, my friends, write for the ear and seek out sound for audio ambiance. With luck, it may help hold your audience long enough to keep their attention until the next commercial. Or did I mention, this is a business, don't forget it. Don't let it slip your mind lest you have to join the hunt for a job of another kind. There's much, much more we should have taught if we all had had more time. But this seems such a perfect way to finally end this rhyme. Again, I thank you all for coming, and I thank you guys very much. I very much appreciate it. And we got to get together and do this again sometime.
Well done. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you.